Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I have been fighting computer problems for the last 30 minutes. But I do have a lot of information that I'm going to go over with you today. And so here we go. And I believe I've got my fourth cup of coffee right now, which is important because I have really been working this morning to put some stuff together. So here we go. The first thing I'm going to start you with, as you know, I've been showing you a lot of Jim Rickards lately. And Jim Rickards is making his rounds on all sorts of television or YouTube channels and doing interviews left and right while he's in quarantine. And so here's a clip I found from Jim Rickards I thought was worthy of your listening to.
$5 trillion of money printing, but all that combined won't work. And so 6 months from now or a year from now, we'll still be in an economic funk, at which point, if there's still this demand for liquidity, is still a US dollar shortage, you may see the IMF step in because they have a relatively clean balance sheet. You know, the Fed is, was so badly leveraged, as I say, they had to recapitalize it with $425 billion. But, and by the way, other central banks are no better off. If you look at the ECB or the People's Bank of China, the Bank of Japan, they're even worse than the Federal Reserve, believe it or not. So, so when that's at its limit, when that's run its course, the only entity left in the world with a clean balance sheet that can print money is the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. They can print a form of world money called the SDR, or the special drawing right. It's a geeky name, but it's geeky on purpose because they don't really want people to understand what it is. But what it is world money from a world printing press. And that can come, but to do that, you're going to need the approval of the executive committee. And China, Russia, and a few other BRICS, and Venezuela and other, kind of rogue nations or adversaries of the United States collectively can block that from happening unless their conditions are met. And one of the conditions could be, okay, fine, we'll approve the printing of the SDRs, but you have to agree that the SDR is the new benchmark global reserve currency. It doesn't mean the dollar disappears. If you can't fly to the United States, you'll still need dollars. If I go to Mexico, I need Mexican pesos, so the dollar will be a local currency. But important things like the price of oil, earnings of the 100 or so largest global corporations, settlement of balance of payments, differences or balances, denomination of reserve positions. These will all be settled and stated in SDRs, in this world money, and that will be the price of getting the printing presses rolling at the IMF. So that's a monetary reset, even more significant in this way than the Bretton Woods standard. Now, will it work? Different question. I'm doubtful, but I believe it will be tried. And to be tried, you're going to have to run the dollar off the road to get the printing presses going on the SDR.
Okay, so I thought that was an interesting video I wanted to show to you. All right, now let's get this thing going. This is from XRP Bark, and I'm going to delete these. I've got so many screens up, I'm going to delete them as I go. From the Spectator Index, breaking over 16 million Americans have now filed for unemployment over the past 3 weeks. Wow. Okay. All right. Now, moving along. Just in, IMF says it anticipates the world economy will have the worst economic fallout since the Great Depression. There's not a question about that. And I still, folks, I'm looking at, when I'm watching the news, I'm still watching it and saying to myself, how can they shut the entire world's economy down and not think that it's going to completely destroy the economy? It's one thing if you do it for even a week or even a few days, but do it for a month, 2 months, 3 months. What do you think you're going to get? And you have to ask yourself the question, these politicians, Donald Trump and Steve Mnuchin, don't know what is going to be the results of what they're doing. Let me say this. I'll say it this way. More and more of the smartest people that I watch and listen to are starting to get to smell a rat. And what I mean by that is they're starting to say, some of these numbers that we're seeing coming out of this current event don't match up to the response that's being done. Shutting down the entire world economy does not match up to the danger level of what we're actually seeing happen with this thing. You're seeing, mark my words, this thing is going to go really quickly to anger and social unrest if they don't do something quick. That's where I see things moving. All right. And then there was this from the Ledger people, pay and get paid in crypto. You can now use crypto. This is crypto.com as a payment option on ledger.com and get 10% cash back. Now, if you don't have a Ledger Nano S, you can go in the description of all my videos and you can get one through that link to store your digital assets safely. Okay, then there's this from XRP Crypto Wolf, Ripple's head of global operations and partnerships, let me see what the name is here. Emi Yoshikawa, who I did meet her at Swell. She was very nice. Was interviewed by Korea's Financial News. The cross-operated by Ripple's partner, Coin1 Official, has expanded its overseas remittance network to the U.S., Canada, and Australia through RippleNet. All right, and then, let's see here. Then NBK Crypto sent me this one. Let me pull this up. Crypto trading volumes rise in India after banking crisis and the current situation. Mumbai, India, the world's second most populous country, is increasingly embracing cryptocurrencies amid domestic economic issues and nationwide current events related lockdown. So India, when you finally see India come online, get ready. And I think it was about a month ago was when they declared that it was legal in their country. Now, here's an interesting article. This is from XRP PyPy. Bang, Trump announced yesterday he wants to open economy with a big bang. Check out older article timeline, May 2020. Bank of England to migrate from core system with a one-off big bang. And this is an article right here that he sent or he tweeted out. Bank of England to migrate from core system with a one-off big bang. The Bank of England will migrate from its current core settlement system with big bang migration before the end of 2025. They plan to complete the replacement of the 23-year-old core system it uses to settle payments between banks with a big bang migration before 2025. The real-time gross settlement system, and this is from February 19th, 2019. This RRTGS system settles payments made on payment systems, including the clearinghouse automated payment systems, CHAPS, and bankers automated clearing services. It has been in use since 1996 and is essential in ensuring money flows in the economy. On average day, the system sells 600 billion pounds worth of transactions. And then, let's see. The supplier that wins the contract will take on an assignment of national importance and will support a carefully planned project over 6 years, will culminate in a huge system migration. And anyway, so you get they were talking about doing this in May of 2020. All right. So what this reminds me of, come on, my Apple Watch. What this reminds me of when I think of May 2020. It takes me back to our little timeline to the Internet of Value, 2020 to 2025, blockchain solutions for capital markets and trade finance emerge. So that we start to see this industry really take off. All right, now from Coining 203. Coining 203 sent me this morning. All right, the real value of real-time payments. Now, this is on JP Morgan's website. I want to say I've seen this document before. I could not find a date on this, but it's still interesting nonetheless. It says the first new U.S. payment system in 40 years is coming, and it aims to dramatically simplify processes from transaction initiation through to reconciliation. And it goes through all of this, and then at the end it says, why is JP Morgan investing significantly in real-time payments? As a leading participant in RTP system development, we are helping to shape the new system with aim of supporting our clients in their broader objectives. These include transforming the customer experience as a market expectations rapidly change, And then as you go down to here, it says the first new U.S. payment system in 40 years can help businesses simplify and gain efficiencies while vastly improving payee experience. Okay, now, in conjunction with this, Coining 203 had sent this is the Bank of America patent that, we've all seen. And we talked earlier in the week or last week that this was that Standard Chartered was on this. Well, Coining 203 had sent me this, and he had highlighted these two blocks here, Ripple DLT SGD. And I didn't know what SGD stood for. Just out of pure curiosity, I wanted to go look at what SGD stood for. Now, to this point, I didn't really have any, there's tie-ins between JP Morgan and Ripple, but I just typed in Ripple DLT SGD on Google, and here's what came up. It's a document from Deloitte, 2017. This is from Matthew Linai. He had tweeted this in August 2019. 2017 Deloitte DLT prototype integrates Ripple and Stellar blockchain project Ubin Insight. Now, and it lists all of I'll pull the actual document here. This is the document, Deloitte Monetary Authority of Singapore. And it says the future is here, Project Ubin SGD on distributed ledger. A report developed with contributions from Bank of America, BCS Information Systems, Credit Suisse, DBS Bank, HSBC, JP Morgan, Mitsubishi UFJ Financial Group, OCBC Bank, R3, Singapore Exchange, and UOB Bank. So here's all the people that helped them with this report. As you go down, it starts here, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, pleased to present the report, Project Ubin, SGD, on distributed ledger. This report will serve as an introduction to distributed ledger technology and provide an understanding of the prototype developed in Project Ubin for interbank payments using DLT. Now remember that. Where else did we see that this would be used for interbank payments? Remember when we saw in that World Economic Forum central banker digital currency toolkit that went to all the central bankers around the world? Who are the two digital assets that they named that will be interbank and intrabank digital assets? JP Morgan coin and XRP. All right. So this is this Project Ubin, and the Monetary Authority of Singapore has signed off on this here. Executive summary. DLT is at the center of mass push for innovation across the financial services industry. Let's go down. I'm going to keep going down. I want to show you one particular slide as we go down. Project Ubin on November 16, 2016. MAS announced that it was partnering with R3, a blockchain-inspired technology company and consortium of the world's largest financial institutions, on the production of a proof of concept to conduct interbank payments facilitated by DLT. You can see all those banks mentioned again in there. And then as we go down, you know what, it may be too hard to find. Let me go here and type it in where the Ripple was mentioned. Here we go. Okay. This is from the section here. This is from Deloitte's Global Blockchain Leader. Financial institutions have the power and ability to take blockchain live in production environments. To get there, companies will need to move away from experimenting with proof of concepts and implement solutions in ready-to-use production mode. Helping organizations achieve this vision is one of the foundational reasons for setup of Deloitte's blockchain labs. One of Deloitte's most notable prototypes is the cross-border payments application. And then right here, folks, here you go. Do you need any more information? This is picture drawing time by my son. The prototype integrates Ripple and Stellar blockchain platforms to enable person-to-person P2P transactions across geographies. DLT offers significant benefits to both P2P, business-to-business payments in terms of cost savings, increased efficiency, improved security. Cross-border payments have plenty of room for innovation, and the future looks bright for DLT within this use case. So there you have it. and it ties in. Let me get rid of a couple of things here. Now, here's a couple of videos that 2 or 3 videos that I was able to find having to do with this from Stephen from the Bull D app. All right, watch this one.
To prove that is right, we took head on our financial payment system as a use case to drive it. And we done the experiment. We have some a conclusion from now. But there are few things which came very strongly, which I think the future is going to ride on, is the cross-border payment, securities DVP as an example, and the third is the whole trade finance piece.
Yep.
And these 3 things are going to drive the blockchain ecosystem in a bigger way. And I think if there, in this audience there are people who are investing their money and time on the blockchain, don't lose hope. What I see, 2020 is the year of productionalizing of blockchain in a big way.
Yeah, that's one thing. So a couple of questions very quickly with regards to that. You said, and I saw you on YouTube, basically. At MIT, June, right? You mentioned that you guys have been developing a series of DLTs, obviously Project Ubin Stage 5, everything. You spent 3 years experimenting, developing it. 2020 is the year you guys are going to roll it out.
Yes. I think our promise is by 2020, and if I don't make it, if you come to Singapore FinTech Festival, I'll admit it, we didn't make it. That's a promise. But by 2020, we will get to one production-grade case on the blockchain space. Absolutely. I think that's why I'm pushing the team to. Even we don't get it, let the private sector do it in partnership with us.
And is that the Apex thing? No.
No, so that's the blockchain project Ubin piece.
Okay.
But Epic's piece is quite different. It is a complete different platform for doing something else.
Yeah.
To prove
2020, it looks like he thinks 2020 is the year of the digital asset as well. Now let's see what this guy says. This guy's from R3. It says, listen to R3's Anthony Lewis discuss Jasper Ubin project. They're on the thing too.
At the Blockchain for Finance conference, I moderated a panel discussing international payments on blockchains, specifically the Jasper Ubin project with the Monetary Authority of Singapore and the Bank of Canada as stakeholders. The 44-page paper was released last week. Here's a quick summary. The focus of the Jasper Ubin project was to explore models for cross-currency, cross-border, cross-blockchain payments in central bank-issued tokenized money. The goal was to prove that this could be done atomically using a cryptographic trick called hash and time-locked contracts, HTLC, which ensures that either all the value moves all the way to the intended recipient, including FX, or nothing moves and all the money is returned to the sender as if it never left. The setup was Singapore dollars issued by MAS on a Singaporean quorum network and a Canadian dollars issued by Bank of Canada on a Canadian Corda network. This phase focused on 3 conceptual designs based on earlier work. Design 1 was with an intermediary who has access to both networks and who does the FX and transfers. For example, HSBC Singapore having access to Singapore dollars in Singapore on Quorum, and HSBC Canada having access to Canadian dollars in Canada on Corda. This is the most traditional setup. Design 2 explored foreign banks holding central bank tokens directly. For example, HSBC Singapore can hold Canadian dollars on Corda, and this would mean that the central banks would allow foreign banks to hold their digital currency. And Design 3 explored money to be recreated as depository receipts on other networks. For example, HSBC Singapore could hold Canadian dollars, traditionally a Corda asset, on Quorum in Singapore. The central banks would act as the agents who issued these depository receipts onto their own networks. The first design with intermediaries was implemented successfully in this phase. So what does this mean? This shows that blockchains can be used to move assets across a number of steps and parties in an all-at-once or not-at-all way. It also shows that tokens, including money, can jump across different blockchain networks using cryptographic tricks. And finally, it demonstrates that the enterprise blockchain industry continues to make progress. To learn more about Corda for cash and payments or security tokens, contact us at digital.assets@r3.com.
So what I just saw is that's the link between JP Morgan, which uses Quorum, and XRP, which uses R3. That's what I saw when I saw this. Is there's your link, how they're linked up, and they're both on that project Ubin. All right, let's move along. Here's another video from Stephen from the Bull from the D app. This is the Central Bank of Singapore. I think this is a guy speaking from the Monetary Authority of Singapore.
Now in phase 4 of Project Ubin, to extend the application to cross-border payment and settlement. And I think this is the killer app. And this is because this is where the real pain point is, and therefore the potential payoff the highest. Cross-border payments today rely on a, should I say, archaic correspondent banking network. Banks hold balances with one another, and settlement occurs through the adjustments of these relative balances. There is counterparty risk, liquidity is split, and reconciliation is a major pain point. In cases where multiple correspondent banks are involved, transactions may take days and at high cost to customers, businesses, as well as individuals. So in phase 4, we have linked up Project Ubin with Project Jasper, run by the Bank of Canada, to test out possible models of cross-border, cross-currency payments across 2 different blockchain platforms. If this is successful, it will help to bring about significant improvements in efficiency, in cost, in speed, and risk management in cross-border payments. The technical work, I'm pleased to say, has been completed, and we will publish the project report, which is our 5th Project Ubin report, in a few weeks' time. The grand vision in the payment and settlement space is a blockchain-based system that allows 24/7 cross-border transactions that can be settled in close to real time at minimal cost.
So there you have it. All right, and then there was this. This was a thread from I Am Legion. Of course, he has been all over this before. And this is from back, let's see when he did this, January 3rd, 2019. Project Jasper and Project Ubin, MAS Central Bank of Monetary Authority of Singapore. He's got some documentation here. We're currently working with the Bank of Canada and how we can link up to 2 blockchain platforms, Jasper and Ubin, for cross-border payments. We have some ideas on several technical models that could work. There's still so much to explore, so we welcome further collaborations with other central banks. There's outline of Ubin, and then he's got this slide here. 3 companies, Anquin, Deloitte, and NASDAQ, were appointed as technology for this project. They will leverage the open source software developed more publicly available in Project Ubin Phase 2. So NASDAQ is involved as well. And then he's got this general list of, I can't even read half the small print on that. Project Jasper, there's about that. So as usual, I Am Legion saw this a long time ago. Now here, let's see what it says in here, if there's anything interesting. Look under the hood of blockchain project Jasper. It says R3, Canada's 6 biggest banks, interbank payments, settlement of cash, the Toronto Exchange, Bank of England. I cannot quite read all of this down here, but moving along. Okay, and then he's just got a logo there for XRP. All right, but it did say in that document that Ripple and Stellar were what they were using. Okay, so now XRP Lighting the Way sent me this. Thought this was interesting. I'm sure Chris Larson is not happy for this to be brought up, but it's the news. Forbes just put out their world's billionaire list, the richest in 2020. So we just had to show you that Chris Larson from Ripple is on the list with a real-time net worth of 2.6 billion. I will make my prediction here and now. I believe that you will see Chris Larson. He's number 804 out of 1,000 billionaires. My prediction is that Chris Larson, before this is all said and done, will be number 1 on this list, and maybe number 1 in the history of the world. Okay, next, I wanted to, we've got some Polysign news. We whisper Polysign on this channel because it is the most secretive project in blockchain, but it is soon to not be such a secret because the official neighbor of the Digital Asset Investor channel sent me this piece of information yesterday evening. And that is this tweet from Wrath of Kahneman. The ever-nascent Polysign Ripple founders is behind a website for standard custody and trust company. Recently came online. And what he's referring to is this. This came out of nowhere, folks. Standardcustody.com. Standard custody and trust company coming soon. Add your email to be one of the first to hear when you're ready. And at the bottom of the page, it says Polysign Inc. 2020. So someone has called themselves standardcustody.com. Standard Custody and Trust Company. Now, when I see that, what I'm immediately thinking is that it's got to be someone like State Street, Northern Trust, BNY Mellon, Fidelity, somebody like that I'm thinking. That's the first thing I thought. As you go down in this thread and you go down here towards the bottom, this person replied to this. Standard Custody is a digital asset custodian dedicated to bringing ultra security, ease of use, and unparalleled support to institutions around the world. And they give an address here, and it says Standard Custody and Trust Company, LLC, 135 East 57th Street, 21st floor. Okay, so now this may not mean anything, folks, and it probably doesn't. But I did a Google search for this address. Now, I think this is a big building that has all sorts of companies in it. But you know how on Google you can look and there's a picture? Well, the one I zoomed in on 135, which is this building, and the first thing I saw was HSBC, and they may just have a bank on the ground floor of this building, and that's the extent of it, folks. But I just thought it was interesting enough to show you. I said there could be several companies in this building, and I think there are. I just Googled it and zoomed in, and this is what I saw, HSBC. I just thought that was interesting enough to tweet out. Okay, and then Mark Phillips sent me this. This is all Polysign, folks. This is an engineer who apparently worked at Polysign who had his resume out on the internet, and Mark had sent me this. Implemented a transaction feature to make deposits, withdrawals on Ripple from a Polysign account. Designed and implemented the Ripple client, created a client that interfaces with Ripple's public API methods via Python's request module. Added a subscribe feature in the Ripple client, which opens a WebSocket connection to the Ripple public network to subscribe to the ledger stream on Ripple's public API. And then we got this from Andy Cross. Looks like Polysign has done a redesign of their website. Their website has changed. Building the future of digital assets. And remember, Polysign said they're going live in 2020. Polysign develops state-of-the-art, secure, scalable infrastructure for financial institutions to fully leverage their digital assets. The opportunity of a generation. Our mission at Polysign is to drive global use of digital assets by building best-in-class infrastructure. I find this interesting. Leading blockchain architects Arthur Brito and David Schwartz designed Polysign's technology engine for securing digital assets. Their third-generation proprietary private blockchain technology is foundational to the development of the digital asset infrastructure. It talks about security. Silicon Valley meets Wall Street, and they've got the BNY Mellon. We've talked about all these people before. Relationships, custody at the core. So don't be surprised if these guys don't become ground zero of custody in the traditional financial world, folks. This is big deal right here. All right, moving along. Okay, I wanted to go off on a little tangent here. I can't get enough of Glenn Hutchins, folks. Remember, Glenn Hutchins is one of the chair people at the New York Federal Reserve, on the New York Federal Reserve Board. But Glenn Hutchins was on CNBC yesterday. I thought I'd show you it. Now remember, I'm going to take you back. I'm going to take you back down the Glenn Hutchins road now, because this guy is an important figure in all of this, and I can't show it or say it enough. Listen to what he says about what's going on now.
What do you think so far of, obviously we're in the very early days of this, but what do you think the biggest potential risks are as we kind of move down this path?
Well, the big issue that we're focusing on right now, which is the appropriate one, is something different, which is getting these loans, the PPP loans, out through the Small Business Administration to the laboring very small businesses. And that's basically right now a huge logistical challenge. And so that's and that plus the direct grants to people who are in need are the most immediate task. The next task behind that, now that the Fed has stabilized the markets for creditworthy borrowers, is to infuse credit across the economy in a way that allows companies to bridge from here to the end of the crisis. That's going to be a massive challenge of understanding how to extend those loans, what channels to put them through, banks or direct loans, and how to structure them in a way that, in my view, ought to be concessionary, should be not the penalty type of rates that we usually have charged to banks in the past that have gotten the economy in trouble, but these corporations, as no fault of their own, are laboring, and I think we need to really make sure that we finance them in a way that creates the bridge for them. These are good businesses that are creditworthy, but just don't have the kind of revenues and access to capital now that they would have had before and will have in a recovered economy.
Okay, so I wanted to show you that, and look, I got to keep making as many ties to this guy as I can, and there's a lot of people that are new watching this channel, and so we want to go and look some more at Glenn Hutchins. Now, first thing you need to understand is that this guy's connected all the way. He's a Harvard grad. He's connected all the way to the heights of power. He's counsel foreign relations. He's a part owner of the Boston Celtics, vice chairman of the Brookings Institution, Federal Reserve Bank of New York. He's a member of the board at NASDAQ, you name it, TD Ameritrade, Seagate Technology. This guy's connected all the way to the top. I found another good illustration of some of the things. I want you to look at, this is from an interesting website called Little Sis. Look at the business, and by the way, there are lawnmowers going outside, and hopefully you won't have to hear them. I don't know if you can hear them or not. But let's look at Glenn Hutchins here. Business positions, just look at these names. NASDAQ, Silver Lake Partners, Seagate, TD Ameritrade Director, SunGard Data Systems Chairman, Blackstone Group, Senior Managing Director, AT&T Board Member, Federal Reserve Bank Board Director, New York Federal Reserve Investor Advisory Committee, White House Advisor on Economic and Healthcare Policy, U.S. Department of Treasury Advisory Committee, Bill Clinton Special Advisor, Brookings Institution Trustee, Partnership of New York City Director, Lawrenceville School Board Member, Harvard University Member, W.E.B. Du Bois Institute National Advisory Board Member, Hutchins Family Foundation, Fix the Debt CEO, Fiscal Leadership Council. Fix what debt, by the way? The Hamilton Project Advisory Council, Economic Club of New York Director, Harvard Management Company, Inc. Director, Council on Foreign Relations Member, Wall Street Journal CEO Council Member, Harvard JD, Harvard BA, Harvard MBA, co-owner of Boston Celtics. He's donated to these people. Democratic National Committee, Democratic Senatorial Campaign, Brookings Institution, DNC Non-Federal Individual, Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, Elliot Spitzer, Schumer Committee for Majority, Hillary Action Fund, Erskine Bowles, John Kerry. This guy is about as connected gets, folks, and he goes all the way to the top. Now, it's important. I know I've shown these before on my channel. I'm going to show them again. You've got to realize how important this guy is in all of this. Listen to what he says. Now this is Gary Cohn, and this is what's his face? The SEC chairman. I'm drawing a blank on his name. It doesn't matter. Watch.
And the protocol. And the three of them operate together to create one solution, one integrated solution that has the capacity to revolutionize the way we move things of value around the world. Let me use a railroad analogy to make the point. The token is the equivalent of the boxcar, It's the thing into which you embed something of digital value that needs to be moved from one place to another, from one part of a blockchain to another. The blockchain is the cargo invoice, is the invoice in the cargo manifest. And the rails is the protocol. And you have to think about all three as one integrated solution that enables you to accomplish the purpose of moving anything of value around the world at the speed of light at no cost, the way we talk about email today. People who just talk about blockchain are talking about something very interesting, but it's a piece of enterprise technology that's an advanced database, and a private blockchain unconnected to the global, to the Bitcoin or another digital currency blockchain is the equivalent of the intranet. Remember when we had intranets to begin with, where it was really cool, you could do internal communication with people in your own companies, but it wasn't really until those intranets were connected via the internet protocol to other intranets to create the World Wide Web of intranets called the internet that the world changed. The world is going to change in finance when we connect the private blockchains via the Bitcoin or Ethereum or other protocol to the other blockchains in the world, have a global blockchain that's the World Wide Web of blockchains that will fundamentally change the way in which not only do we move value around the world at the speed of light, but also in which we actually fundamentally change the way in which we compute, because it's the fourth computing paradigm I've experienced in my lifetime, the decentralized computing paradigm. That is the vision of where we can really go with this. That's transformational. Now, the first step will be the intranets, the blockchains, as those get deployed. But that's not the end point. That's just the first step. And go into all that stuff at greater length if you'd like me to. But that's
All right, so there's that. And then there was this video from Peter Pumpkin Eater. How can we forget this?
And you've kind of gotten into that, but we've just seen a huge meltdown over the past 12, 15 months. Are you still a believer?
So if we'd been sitting here together in 2002, we probably were. You would have asked me, the internet. We've just seen this huge meltdown in the last 12 to 15 months. Are you still a believer? Right?
Yep.
And so the answer is yes. Now the digital currency solution is the most important technological advance I've seen since the internet. It has the capacity to do lots more, but it certainly has the capacity to enable us to move anything of value around the world at the speed of light at no cost. It has three components. It has a token of value, which is called the Bitcoin. It has an accounting mechanism, which is called the blockchain. But the most important piece, which is one that people aren't focusing on, is the protocol. The underlying protocol by which we agree to conduct these transactions. So you use a series of protocols every day, and you don't even think about them. You don't think about the internet protocol. You don't think about the simple mail technology protocol. You don't think about the file transfer protocol. You don't think about the high text translation protocol. I can go through them, right? You just make use of the technology, and the protocols make it work. The people who really understand what's going on with digital currencies understand that putting these protocols in place, the blockchain protocol, the Ethereum protocol, the Ripple protocol, and then enabling those protocols to cause transactions to occur. And then those transactions can be defined very broadly as not just moving things of value, but anything that's got an information content, is extraordinarily transformative. The focus on the value of the token is distracting and uninformative.
Yeah, the focus on the value of the token. I believe that one day in your future, if you're listening to this channel, I believe that one day people will ask you, well, how did you make your money? And I believe that your response will be, well, I was an early investor in the internet of value. That's where I believe this goes. All right. Okay. So back on this Glenn Hutchins thing, I wanted to play you this one as well. There are so many good clips, and it's important. And I want you to really listen as this video gets towards the end, because this really, let me refresh that. He really spells it out.
Primary interest, I have some investments in some ETFs that have exposure to the coins.
Let me do a refresh on that. Okay.
But I own that because it's a product of a company I sit on the board of. But my primary interest is in companies that use Bitcoin technology to revolutionize the way we move value around the world. Just the way we've used the internet over the last 20 to 25 years to revolutionize the way we move information, voice and video, and commerce around the world. And so what's the most important thing about business? Information and value.
Right. And you can move money, and it's virtually, it's not free because there are transaction fees, but you can move money and you can do it anonymously?
Well, not anonymously, it's pseudonymously. So pseudo-anonymously, which means that you and I don't have, the main thing here is you and I don't have to trust each other to do a transaction. The cost of trust is why costs are so high for moving money around.
Interesting.
Right, so since you and I have to trust each other, intermediaries get to insert that trust. They take away the fraud risk, the credit risk, the settlement risk, the custody risk, etc. The foreign exchange translation risk, all those sort of things, and they charge for doing that.
Is that why the big banks were initially skeptical on Bitcoin, because it's removing them, it's removing the intermediary?
Well, look, it's a very nascent industry. It's like the internet was in the early 90s. And we're a long way away from, we've got the math solution to this problem of trust-free exchange. That was where the Bitcoin came from. And we're now beginning to create engineering solutions that can move that math solution, just like the development of the internet, went from math solutions to engineering solutions to companies to transformation. So we've got the math solution and beginning to have the engineering solution. Now we're building out individual companies, which I'm investing in, that address the credit card market, that address the remittance market, that address some very new markets, like machine-to-machine payments, really interesting, that are building the infrastructure. And then those companies have to come up with business models that solve real customer problems. So that's 5 to 10 years away. This is a very, very small, nascent industry that has a chance to be transformative, but has to do a lot of work between now and then, just like the internet in the early 90s. That's why I say the Bitcoin price is a distraction. People are all focused on the wrong thing. They're looking at the store of value, the gold equivalent notion of Bitcoin, rather than the means of exchange features of it that can really be transformative. They're also missing the fact that Bitcoin could be the wrong solution. Bitcoin could turn out to be Betamax, and some other token like Ethereum or Ripple or Zcash could end up being the right answer, could turn out to be VHS. My primary interest.
Exactly. So I think he sums it up pretty well right there, that Bitcoin could be the Betamax. All right. Now, moving along, I wanted to follow down, we've shown you this before, that he's with the Digital Currency Group, which owns parts of Coinbase and Ripple, okay? Now, let's keep going with Glenn Hutchins here. I wanted to find out when he was put on their board, and this is a random article that I found, April 29th, 2016. Western Union invests in Digital Currency Group. I had never seen this before. We talked a lot about Western Union and whether they were going to use Ripple and all that, but they invested in the Digital Currency Group. I wonder why they would have done that. But these are the new advisors added. DCG also added Glenn Hutchins and Lawrence Linehan to its board. Glenn Hutchins is the chairman of North Island and is also director of AT&T and NASDAQ. Dr. Lawrence Summers and Gavin Andreessen have joined also. It says, so anyway, this is when they added Glenn Hutchins back in 2016. And now I wanted to go and show you this. Okay, this is his thing on Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Well, here's what I kept seeing that I have not looked into is this North Island. He's the chairman of North Island. And I looked all over the place. I had a very hard time finding anything that would tell me what North Island is. North Island, I finally found. It took me a while. I looked for a good while this morning. Well, North Island, first I'll show you this. This is Glenn Hutchins. He also has the Hutchins Family Foundation. And for those of you that don't know what a family foundation is, this is what wealthy people do. They form family foundations so that it looks to the hordes like they are just these charitable people and they want to give money away. But what it actually is rich, wealthy people form family foundations so they can accomplish two things. One, making it look like, and I'm not saying they're not charitable, but it's important that they look charitable to all of we peasants. But the main reason they form it is for tax purposes. It's a way for them to be able to say, look at me, I'm giving my money away, when they're really not. What they're really doing is setting up a family foundation so that they can put all of their family members from now to the end of time in this family foundation to run it and make a living off of it and reap the rewards of that family foundation. That's how these things work. That's why Bill Gates does it. That's why Warren Buffett does it. These trust you, me. These guys are not giving their money away. They're setting their children up it's a tax plan is what it is. So, but he's got a family foundation just like all these wealthy people do. But then I wanted to go and find this North Island and see what they were about. So the first thing that I did is I found this, and it shows that North Island is invested in, I found these two companies, Digital Assets Data and Virtue Financial, they're invested in. Well, I kept looking because I still haven't found out what North Island is. Well, finally found it from the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. Here it is, North Island Holdings is what it's called. And I was looking around, they're out of New York City, okay? That didn't surprise me. And maybe it's called North Island Ventures LLC. But anyway, as you go down here, it shows Glenn Hutchins right here, related persons. And his partner in this is a guy named Robert Grayfield. Okay, I think that's how you say that. The principal occupation of Mr. Grayfield is serving as an executive of North Island Ventures LLC. So this is his job. So I had never heard this guy's name, so I decided maybe I'd go look. Well, Robert Grayfield, here's who he is. He's an American businessman, and he was the chairman of the NASDAQ, the largest electronic screen-based equity securities market in the United States. He served as CEO from 2003 to 2016 and was succeeded by Adina Friedman. Grayfield focused on this, So the bottom line is, and he's also on the Committee on Capital Markets Regulation. You'll remember that. Let's see. I think this is it. Remember the Committee on Capital Markets Regulation? Remember who else was on that? Well, he's on this board. Look who else is on the board. I talked about it the other day. Craig Phillips, who is former counselor to the Secretary, U.S. Department of Treasury. And Craig Phillips is also on the board at Ripple. Yes, sirree. All right, so we got this. He goes by Bob Grayfield, by the way. And so I decided to start looking around for, first I wanted to, what this reminded me of when I read that he was with the NASDAQ, reminded me of the XRP Liquid Index, which is on NASDAQ, okay? That's what it reminded me of, which they created not too long ago. All right, so we've got this I'm going to forget his name, Bob Grayfield. Now, these companies that their organization, this North Island has invested in, one of them is this Virtue Financial. The board of directors of Virtue Financial, one of them is Douglas Saifu. He's a chief executive officer, so he's the guy that runs this Virtue Financial. And then he's also, if you look on the members of this Committee on Capital Markets Regulation, you'll see Douglas Saifu, Chief Executive Officer of Virtue Financial. So he's on there too. And then they also invest. The other thing that you need to know, this is ErisX right here. And Virtue Financial is an investor in ErisX, as well as the NASDAQ, as well as CME Ventures, which invests in Ripple, as well as the Digital Currency Group, which invests in Ripple, as well as Fidelity, as well. I mean, this all ties together, folks. Okay, and then let's go on. And this is I just wanted to find anything I could on Bob Grayfield. This is a quote from him at Money 2020. It took us 18 months thinking about Bitcoin to realize that we actually wanted the blockchain. All right. Now, let's move along here. This is another one of their investments, the Crypto Asset Knowledge Platform, Digital Assets Data. This is an investment from this I keep forgetting the name of North Island. This enterprise-grade software and data feeds it provides data feeds for crypto hedge funds and other market participants. And then this guy is also at Runaway Growth Capital. Is another one of he's basically just a venture capitalist now that he's retired from the NASDAQ. Here's another one of his quotes: blockchain technology continues to redefine not only how the exchange sectors operate, but the global financial economy as a whole. And then there was this I wanted to show to you all. This is something you got to see. I'm going to close the video out here. This was you remember this, Austin Goolsbee was an economist in the Obama administration. This is getting really scary, folks. I want you to listen to what he says in this video.
Is the money that we're seeing coming out of the Fed and out of the government going to be enough, given the jobless claims numbers that we're seeing?
I don't think so. You know, this is a savage number, and this ties effectively the biggest number of all times by a factor of 10. 1/10 of this number before 2 weeks ago would have been the worst jobless claims we ever had. And this is probably still an underestimate of what the unemployment situation is, because in state after state, you've completely overloaded the unemployment insurance system. You've got people lined up in the state of New York, for example. You have to physically talk to someone. You can't just do it online. And you've got people reporting they've called 200 times to try to get through and file an application, and they just get a busy signal. I think the Fed is doing what they should do. This was already baked in, I think, because this is exactly what the money was that they announced. And I just think monetary policy, the whole monetary policy channel, is so not antiquated, but is not really directly appropriate to the nature of the shock that's happening here, that I don't think it's going to end up being enough.
This unemployment situation is getting worse and worse. It's going to be the worst since the Great Depression. Write it down, folks. And if you're one of those people that has gotten laid off, I'll keep saying it. I've got a coupon code in the description of all my videos where you can go and roll your 401k in part or in whole to an iTrustCapital IRA. And once you've got one, you can invest in digital assets like Bitcoin and XRP, and they're about to have it where you can invest in gold as well. And so I've got a coupon code where you get 1 month free. It's in the description of all my videos. Go use it. And do this. If you do nothing, just roll part of yours, because digital assets could very likely be one of the primary beneficiaries of this nightmare that the world is going through, because it's a new asset class. Remember, it's the first new asset class since bonds were created in the 1600s. This is a huge opportunity. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe and hit the like button and tell your friends and family to check out iTrustCapital in the description of all of my videos. Thank you for listening.